Yeah, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia back with the latest installment of the JungleRoar pod, brought to you by the great folks at Prize Picks and the Game Time app, the official app and ticketing app of the NBA Finals. The Celtics, of course, open up game one Thursday night with the Dallas Mavericks. Here with me on this edition of the JungleRoar pod is the one and only James Rapien of allbengals.com. James, a lot to get to, and we'll get to it right away here, talking Ja'Marr Chase. How is Ja'Marr Chase, and maybe to a lesser degree, Tee Higgins, impacted by the huge Justin Jefferson news on Monday? 4 years, $140 million, that extension being announced. How do you think those two guys are impacted?
Well, first off, I think you're impacted because you might have moved down a half a rung on the rich man rankings in America. I think Justin Jefferson just exceeds Mike Petralia as far as bankroll goes now with that contract, just by a little bit, though, of course.
New home in someone's neighborhood, I know.
That's right. That's right. So, but
we digress. Go ahead.
I think it impacts one of the two Bengal stars. And the thing that I'm actually most surprised about is all the discussion and discourse around how it impacts T. It doesn't impact T. Like, not even a little bit. Like, not even.
I'm surprised actually to hear you say that, but continue.
It would be like me pretending that Adam Schefter's new extension with ESPN that I'm sure is going to happen at some point impacts my job. Like, yeah, we're both in sports media, and that's where it ends. Tee Higgins and Justin Jefferson are very far apart. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Tee Higgins. He's just not there. And go ahead.
I would get, let me jump in here, because your argument probably would be more along the lines, Jalen Waddle impacts Tee Higgins, Justin Jefferson directly impacts Ja'Marr Chase. Would you say that's fair?
Fair to a degree. Here's what's interesting about that. Okay. I think both impact Ja'Marr. I think Tee Higgins, we'll see. He's got to go out there and do it this year for him to get in that realm. He's not getting close to that $30 million per year as of right now. Could he a year from now? Absolutely. But he can't go out there and have 600 yards. That's why he's training in Miami. Like, people think, oh, well, Tee Higgins, he might not be dedicated this year. No, Tee Higgins is all in this year. Yeah, Tee Higgins is going to show up and be ready to ball out, because if he does, then much like CeeDee Lamb, he can play his way into that conversation. But I don't think he's in that conversation yet. Now, what's interesting, in the Waddle comp is fair from a production standpoint. The reason it's tough for me, he had 2 years left on his deal, much like Ja'Marr Chase. And so I see that part of it where it's like, okay, well, if you're the Bengals, you have two options here. And if you're Ja'Marr Chase, you have two options here. You can go the Justin Jefferson route, where he played out his rookie deal, was going into that fifth-year option year, and got a 4-year extension. Or maybe you want to get that long-term security now and sign a 3-year extension. If I'm the Bengals, and this is where it gets interesting. By the way, Waddle did that with a 3-year extension.
Correct.
I would try to lock him up for 4 years now. So he's under contract for 6 years. It puts him in lockstep with Joe Burrow. And to do that, you're going to have to sweeten the pot with guaranteed money, probably even more so than that, a contract that exceeds what Justin Jefferson received. Will the Bengals do that? Are they willing to do that? I think there's a lot of layers to this.
So do you agree that if the Bengals don't get the extension done this year with Ja'Marr Chase this summer, the price tag only goes up and up and up? It's not going down. It's not decreasing. And it's probably not going to stay in the same neighborhood as Justin Jefferson. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think because CeeDee Lamb could be the next guy.
Yes.
And so there's a race there. The other element here, and it's interesting, is Tyreek Hill. And what happens with Tyreek Hill? Can he get an extension? He wants one. That's the other one. Those are really the only two. Outside of that, I don't think Brandon Ayuk as of now, or Tee Higgins, or any of these guys really are in the same ballpark as Ja'Marr Chase. Yeah. But could that change in a year? It could. And so if you're the Bengals, yeah, getting it done now would make a ton of sense. And if you could sweeten the pot a little, like I said, and get him locked up. None of these receivers have been under contract for 6 years, right? So it's hard to do. And maybe the Bengals would be leery of doing that too. I wouldn't be. I would say, all right, well, let's try to get you under contract for the next 6. I do have a proposal whenever you want of what that deal could look like that I wrote about for BengalsTalk.com, and I'm happy.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Let's get into some of the, or outline some of the thumbnail bullet points, if you will, of that proposal, because I know you did write that for Monday on allbengals.com. So fire away.
BengalsTalk.com.
Oh, what a, Jesus. I'm sorry, James. BengalsTalk.com.
Yeah. I think if you go the Justin Jefferson route and you want him to sign up for 4 years on top of this year, on top of the 5th-year option year, the reason you want to do that is so you can spread out those cap hits. And so if Justin Jefferson agreed to a 4-year, $140 million extension with $110 million guaranteed, well, you go up. You say, hey, we're going to reset the market with you, Jamar. We're going to give you 4 years, $150 million, 115 guaranteed. Heck, go to 120, 120 million guaranteed. And the reason we're doing this is because it will give us the ultimate flexibility. We value you. We want to make you the highest paid wide receiver in the game. We're not skimping on guaranteed money. We think you're the best player for us at the wide receiver position. So we're going to pay you like it. But in return, give us this flexibility. And it would really be that simple. Now, would he balk at it because he'd be under contract for the next 6 years or until his age 30 season? Yeah, he might. Or he may say, you know what? I love it in Cincinnati. The fact that I'd be making nearly $38 million per year in average annual salary, let's do it. What say you, Trags?
I think that it's going to be about the years to the Bengals. I don't think they're going to want to go 4 years. I think 3 year. I think more the Jalen Waddle model in terms of years is of the Bengals' liking, because they just don't. They except for the franchise quarterback, I don't think they get into long-term deals. Maybe they make an exception or consider making an exception with Jamar Chase, but I just get the sense that they're not willing to go 4 years. They'll give him the money. They'll match the AAV and the guaranteed money associated with that AAV, but I don't think they'll go 4 years. That's just my sense.
And so that is that hurts them more than it hurts Jamar. Just so you know, like if you're in team Jamar, the Bengals should want to spread this out. Like last year, they should have wanted to sign Burrow to a 50-year contract. Not a 5-year extension. 50. Who cares? The length is irrelevant. We want to lock you up as long as possible. Jamar Chase's prime. You worried about it? I'm not. Because it gives you the rest of Chase's prime. And Chase probably wouldn't sign that deal, by the way, because of that. Because receivers might be making $55 million per year in 2028.
Correct.
When he could be up for an extension.
I see your point.
So to your point, though, let's say they want to go shorter term and they want to do the Jalen Waddle contract. Well, he's not going to make no $85 million over 3 years like Waddle signed. But you can match the $35 million AAV that Justin Jefferson got.
Sure.
With a 3-year, $105 million extension and say 90 guaranteed. So his guaranteed money would exceed what Waddle got. It's the same structure from a year standpoint as a fellow number 1 receiver or first round wide receiver in his class, whatever you want to call him, in Jalen Waddle. And yet the $35 million AAV is what Justin Jefferson got. You match that. So I do wonder if that's the happy medium. But if I'm the Bengals, I'm pushing for that 4th year. And I get it. It's a lot of money. But you get the rest of Chase's prime potentially. It coincides with Joe Burrow. And you can spread that out. So you can keep this window open. I get sick and tired of people pretending like it's a problem that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are awesome and that you have to pay them. No, it's not a problem. It's awesome. It's the problem you want to have when you draft these guys. I really, really hope that in a few years we're talking about, oh my God, how are they going to pay Jermaine Burton? Or how are they going to pay Miles Murphy? Like that's what you want from these guys that you draft. And I can name all their other draft picks, but I'm not going to do that. But you get the point.
I do, James. And we're speaking with James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. BengalsTalk.com. You can find all of James' great content, including Monday's column on the impact that the Justin Jefferson deal has on Jamar Chase and some takeaways that James has. Mike Petraglia, Trags here, host of the Code Reds and JungleRoar podcast on CLNS. I want to take a moment now to tell you about Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. How does it work? Well, just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. The finals mean more on Prize Picks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars you won't find anywhere else. And when the finals are over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is just getting started. With young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves, along greats like Breanna Stewart and Asia Wilson, you could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. How do you get involved? Well, just download the app today and use that code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, I want to stick on the wide receivers and just focus now on Tee Higgins and your reaction last week when Jalen Waddle did sign that contract, and just keep the conversation strictly regarding Tee Higgins, because up until Monday, I think most of the focus this offseason had been on what's the deal with T, when's he going to sign his franchise tag, is there any hope of an extension for Tee Higgins? I think those were all on the table. With the Jalen Waddle 3-year, $84.75 million contract extension, how does that impact T?
Even before Waddle's extension, I would have put, and they have until July 15th to get a deal done. You're going to love this number. The likelihood of the Bengals and Tee Higgins agreeing to an extension at 0. Not at 1, not at 5, not at 15, not at, oh, well, maybe they come. No, 0. Like, I don't think there's any chance. And so does the Waddle extension. Does that further cement that? Probably a little bit, because the wide receiver market just continues to move, and it continues to move.
Okay, let me stop you.
Yeah.
Why is it 0? Is it more because of the way the Bengals are approaching this, or the way David Mulligetta, Athletes First, T's representation is approaching it?
All of the above. Mulligetta is not going to agree to a contract that it only includes guaranteed money in year 1. And the Bengals, well, they're saying, well, we don't have to do more than that. We have you on the tag for guaranteed money for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And we're comfortable with that. It fits in our salary cap. And by the way, and I do think that this is a very real possibility, even though I'm sure Tee Higgins' camp hates the idea. But with these wide receiver contracts going up, and with 30 million AAV becoming kind of the norm, if Tee Higgins goes out and has 1,300 yards this year and 10 touchdowns,
tag him again.
You think they're not tagging you again for 26 and nearly 27?
It'd be foolish not to.
Of course, because now suddenly it's good value. And so let's just say that the Jalen Waddle contract, why would the Bengals do that with Tee Higgins now? He doesn't have 2 years of control left. He has 0 years of control. He's under the tag now. So a 3-year extension for $85 million doesn't really help them at all. It doesn't change what they're looking at, where they're really looking at a scenario where if Tee Higgins is awesome, it's a 2-year, $47 million deal. The part that stinks is the cap hits are the cap hits, and the direct cap hits in each individual year if you did do that. But that's what they're looking at. Maybe
small price.
Yeah, maybe it's $48 million. Or maybe Tee Higgins struggles this year, deals with injury, has 600 yards, for whatever reason, doesn't put up the numbers that he expects. And so then you let him walk in free agency. They have the control and it sucks for T from that element. But if he wanted an extension, if Mulligetta wanted an extension, if all these parties wanted an extension, they should have done it last year. Last offseason was the time to do it, where a 3-year extension would have benefited everyone. Now it benefits T, but the Bengals have no interest in that because it doesn't help them, and they can go year to year and do it on a much, honestly, more affordable standpoint where they can get out of it at any time.
All right, let's get to the action on the field. And yes, we are in off-season practice mode, OTAs, moving into minicamp, which begins next week before the Bengals go on their, let's call it 5.5 week, 6 week summer break. I think Joe Burrow's looked pretty damn good. I think for what we could expect from a guy coming off very significant right wrist surgery back in November, he's passed the eyeball test to me. And I asked Zach Taylor this last week, and I know you were there when I asked this. It's all well and good that we think he's looking great, that he's making all the throws on time. But I asked Zach Taylor, what do you think he looks like? Do you think he's doing everything you want Joe Burrow to look like? Now, he doesn't want to put timetables. He doesn't want to put any expectations on that. Zach Taylor's made that clear over and over, and I get that. But in terms of what I've seen and what he's seen, he looks pretty good, strong, and on time. What say you?
He does. Yeah, he does. He looks really about as good as you could have hoped he would look at this stage. Now, is he perfect right now? No. I also don't want to see perfect Joe Burrow in late July, early August. I want to see him be 100% at the start of the season, week 1. And so, but I think the Bengals have done a good job of, and I'm sure you've noticed this, Trags. He'll take like a period off, and sometimes it's like half of a period.
Yes.
Where he's not throwing, or he's not taking part in a handoff drill, or just little things. And I think last Thursday, I want to say it was like their last session last week. He had the brace on, did not throw, did not participate. We weren't there, but if you read the tea leaves, that happened. I think they're playing this smart, where, and Burrow mentioned this at the start of the offseason program, he needs to be better about knowing when he should rest. Now is certainly still rest time. Hell, it's rest time for you and me too, because we know what the grind is about to be for us.
Right.
And for Burrow, it's on a whole nother level. Once the season starts, whatever aches and pains you're dealing with, you got to play through them if you can. And he knows that, but the season isn't here yet. And so I think one element that I've been really impressed with is that, because in the past, I think Burrow would be throwing every throw he can, getting every rep he can, because he wants the reps, wants the reps, wants the reps. The reps are important, and it's great to see him throwing, but you got to get that wrist all the way back to 100%, get your body all the way back. And I do think he is well on his way to doing that. As far as him throwing the football, I do think he's looked better as the offseason program has progressed. I went back and watched some video from that first session to now, and the wobbly passes are far and few between compared to that first session.
Yep.
And there weren't a ton then, but I just think he's getting stronger. He's getting better, getting more comfortable off platform, all of the things that you would hope that he would be doing.
Of the rookies in the draft class, really the only one we can look at and make some kind of judgment on, some type of concrete observation, is Jermaine Burton. Because when you're talking about defensive players, they can't hit, they can't tackle. You're talking about Amarius Mims, first round pick. He can't block. He can't engage with anybody. But Jermaine,
you don't think he can block?
I think he can. I know that's going to be taken out of. You know what's going to happen?
Yep.
You're going to pull that out as a clip and say Amarius Mims can't block. I know what you're going to do. I know what you're thinking. I know you very well, James Rapien.
I'm gonna show Amarius. Hey, Amarius, Trags doesn't think you can block. Your response.
Okay.
He might put you in
back on track here, Trags.
Focus. I agree. Seeing Jermaine Burton is, you're right, because he can run routes, he can still catch.
Correct.
And let's start there with the catching part. His hands are as advertised.
The snatch.
I mean, he catches the ball with his hands. We haven't seen a ton of downfield stuff. I can't wait to see him go up against competition. And heck, we may see that later today when we go out there on the practice field. But no, I think he looks the part. I do wonder what the role will be of wide receiver 3. I think it will be wide receiver 3 by committee, but obviously Jermaine Burton is going to be firmly in that mix this year.
How different is he, or will he be, do you think, than Tyler Boyd?
Oh, I mean, their styles are complete. You're talking about a precision route runner in Boyd, a big slot,
right,
versus a downfield threat that doesn't have that route running ability yet. Maybe he will, but doesn't have it yet. Both guys are, I think, going to be physical players, tough, strong players, but just different styles. But that's fine because they have a Charlie Jones, they have a Mike Gesicki, they have these guys that I think are, from a route running standpoint, going to be able to do some of the things that Boyd did. But all three of those guys can threaten the second and third levels of the defense. All three are explosive. You throw in Trenton Irwin there, who I think is probably the best comp to Boyd, honestly, as far as wide receivers go on this roster. Doesn't mean he's Tyler Boyd. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, Boyd was great for a long time, but just from a route running standpoint. So they do have their options that they can throw in there at that slot spot.
I think that just what you mentioned there is really intriguing and I think really exciting if you're a Bengal fan, because you can go a lot of different ways. Dan Picture has 3 different options he can go with wide receiver 2, assuming T and Jamar are healthy and playing and active and doing what they do on a regular basis. You obviously, if it's a short yardage situation, you could go in one way. If you're looking to go downfield, you could go certainly Jermaine Burton. And then, Charlie Jones, and certainly Trenton Irwin, they offer you a different option in between. I think it's fascinating. And I would think that Dan Picture knows the personnel and knows Joe Burrow enough to know how to mix them in the pot.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be fun is this offense. Part of the evolution is you don't have Tyler Boyd. You're not going to just run 11 personnel all the time. You're not going to have 3 wide receivers or the same 3 wide receivers on the field 80% of the time. There's going to be times where maybe it's Andre Yosevach on the outside opposite Tee Higgins, and it's Jamar Chase in the slot. And then other times, specifically in the red zone, I think where Mike Gesicki goes in the slot and you have Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, all 3 guys can win contested catch situations. All 3 guys are strong, tough, good hands. Makes a ton of sense. At the same time, the play action game with Jermaine Burton going downfield and running deep in between Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase is mighty, mighty interesting. Charlie Jones, Chuck Sizzle has plenty of speed as well. So I think between those 2 guys, those can be your speed threats, with Jones being more of a precision route runner and Burton certainly threatening the downfield element more so than they've had in recent years. So I like the mix. I think there's enough talent there. How it plays out, I think, is one of the big, big storylines as we get closer to the regular season and throughout training camp that we'll cover.
What is Yoshi's role going to be?
I think it's interesting because I think he's taken a big step. He looks thicker, stronger.
He definitely looks bigger and stronger, no question.
And he's a better athlete than Jermaine Burton or Charlie Jones or really anyone on the team.
There's a theory out there.
Outside of a few guys.
Let me just jump in here. The theory is he could be Tee Higgins in waiting. He could do some of the same things Tee Higgins could do because of the athleticism, because of the height, and because of his, his background in at Princeton and now in his rookie year with the Bengals. There is that theory. Do you think there's some legitimacy to that?
I'm not willing to crown him Andre Higgins. I don't think that he can just slide in and take T's spot next year, say if T leaves in free agency. But is there a scenario where he can be a big part of that and eat a chunk of that pie, so to speak, that Tee Higgins left behind and a chunk of that production offensively? I do think that. I think he is that physically gifted. I would never, I mean, he's a 6th round pick. I'm not going to say, all right, he's going to be Tee Higgins. Tee Higgins should have been a top 20 pick, one of the best wide receiver drafts.
Correct.
So it's hard for me to say that. But do I think he can I'm trying to think of. Do I think that the trio almost of Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton, Andre Yosavash, and let's go quartet, Charlie Jones, can be a lot of what they've had? I do think if Andre takes a step, if Charlie takes a step, that's a very real possibility. Doesn't mean they won't take another wide receiver next year in the draft, but I do think that Andre Yosavash can be a big part of this offense and showed it last year that he earned Burrow's trust in the red zone. So can he expand his game? Can he make an impact all over the field? I think he'll get his chance this year.
Trags, Mike Petraglia here. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, like the environment of an NBA Finals game. How cool would it be to be in the building to maybe watch Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the Celtics fulfill their dream and win Banner 18? They're back in the NBA Finals for the second time in 3 seasons, so we know it's going to be an electric atmosphere. Well, I want to tell you about an app that makes being there a reality. It's called Game Time. Getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier with Game Time. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, with great last-minute deals, all-in prices, their lowest price guarantee, and something I love, a view from your seat. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. There are flash deals as well. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of any game or event. And if you find tickets in the same location and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. What a great deal. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, I want to take some time out to give some props to some Bengal players, starting with Joe Burrow. He had, I know you wrote about this on BengalsTalk.com.
You nailed it.
Yeah, I had to think about it, so I didn't quite nail it. But anyway, Joe Burrow raised $1.1 million at his charity golf event on Friday. Then on Saturday, Logan Wilson held his second annual Logan Wilson Celebrity Softball and Home Run Derby Challenge. That was up in Dayton at Day Air Ballpark. And I wrote about this on CLNS Media. I do think it's a big deal that these guys stick together and do a lot of things together off the field in the off season. And look, I know a lot of these I know a lot of teams in general, whatever the sport, like to come together, stick together off the field. But I just get the sense that it does mean something to these Bengals to have unity on and off the field.
Sure. I agree with you. I think this team, the culture, how much they support each other it is really unique. You've covered teams that aren't like that. I certainly have covered teams that aren't like that, and you can tell it. And it's good to point out, and I'm glad you are, because it can get lost in the moment. And there's going to be a time 10 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe it's 15 or 20, and Burrow's Tom Brady in place for the next 2 decades with Jamar Chase, and they signed 4 more extensions. But there'll be a time when this era is over and we look back and we're like, man, remember that, how much they supported each other, regardless of what happened on the field.
Right.
And we'll be like, man, that was a really tight locker room. And I think this is one of those where it's like, Ted Karras has been here for 2 years. It feels like 20.
It does.
Joe Burrow's been
it's so true. James, I'm glad you pointed that out. It is just like and yes, he's from nearby Indianapolis, but it's like he understands the culture of the community here.
Yeah, and it fits right in. Joe Burrow's been here for 4 years, not 14. Right? Like it's wild. Like but that's it. Like the entire identity changed and shifted. And that's where the value is. That's where it is, these guys, how they support each other, trying to keep them together, trying to continue to find the right fits and bring in the right character guys. I think it does matter. Obviously, talent matters a ton too, and they have a lot of that right now. So, no, I think it is a good point. It's a unique locker room. It's really close. Hopefully it continues because they're a lot of fun to cover.
And there were quite a number of former Bengals there. Obviously, Gio Bernard, Kevin Huber, David Fulcher was there with Bengal Jim doing some interviews. So there was a lot of camaraderie there on Saturday up in Dayton. And
how many home runs would you have hit?
I thought about that, actually. I think I would have hit 2. I think I could have hit 2 over the fence, but it would have had to been the perfect pitch, perfect swing. It's kind of like hitting a golf ball. When I hit a golf ball and I hit it well, which is not often. Okay, Deborah Ann can attest to that. She sees me on the course all the time. When I connect, it goes. So I will say that. So but let me turn this on you. If I hit 2, you absolutely have to hit at least 4 or 5.
So is it timed? What was the setup?
Time in 60 seconds. Correct.
Okay.
60.
So let's see. I think it was in 2018. 2018. The Y'alls had us. I believe it was the Y'alls. The Florence Y'alls had us. It was me, Pokey Reese, Dimitri Young, and a few others for a former Red / local media members home run derby. And I hit the most out of the media members. I think I hit 5 or 6. I can't remember the amount of time.
Softball or baseball?
Softball. And I hadn't freaking swung a bat in years. I was so annoyed that I hadn't swung. And you're obviously swinging as hard as you're trying to get the ball over the fence. It's a home run derby. It's my first home run derby ever. But no, I would prepare for this one. I think I'd be pretty good. I think I would have a shot here. Because that time I had a decent amount of success, considering I literally hadn't swung a bat, I don't think, since high school.
Admittedly, James, I have not watched many softball games. I've never seen somebody hit a softball as hard and as far as Cal Adamitis did. I mean, and he won the Derby.
Well, he had great form, man.
Oh,
I mean, you watch him, and it's just like,
his follow through, and you can tell. And you played baseball. When you finish high in the right form, you can tell the guy played at some competitive level.
And that's what annoyed me about when I did that derby, and I think it was 2018. It might have been 2017. But I saw a video of it and I was like, I look awful. It worked, but it did not look, it was not the Cal sweet swing. I think he was a lefty, right? But no, it was not the sweet swing.
Lefty, correct.
Yeah. I pulled a couple, by the way. So the power was there. I just had to,
Are you a lefty or a righty, by the way?
I'm a righty.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll finish up NBA Finals prediction. I know you are a big NBA fan. I have to get this out there. Go.
Mavs in 7.
I'm a little surprised. I say Celtics in 6.
We can wager on that.
Who's going to do whose podcast the next time?
That's right. That's what we'll do.
Yes, do something like that. I think this is the time that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown finally get it done. I think they are playing underratedly good defense, and I think they'll find a way, though. Luka is Luka, so.
Luka's Luka. I do think it's a great matchup from a contained Kyrie standpoint. I think the Porzingis factor, what he brings, how much he brings, that could be the changing moment here in the series, because I love the Mavs front court. They have a huge edge if Porzingis isn't 100%, but if he is, they don't have that edge anymore. And they're deeper. I would give the coaching edge to the Mavs. The overall talent, it certainly goes to the Celtics. So it is going to be an interesting series. I hope it goes 7, because as good as these playoffs have been, they've been short series, and I'm sick of that. This is our last chance at NBA basketball for quite some time. I need it to go 7. So I want it to be 7. I want the game 7 to be in the Garden. I want Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic to both have 40+ points. The game tied with 1 minute to go. That's what I want. Is that too much to ask? Probably, but that's what I'm hoping for.
All right. He is James Rapien, BengalsTalk.com. You can catch all of his great content there. He obviously does a great job with all of his content all over the place. Anywhere else you want to plug here, by the way, while you have the platform?
Locked On Bengals podcast and Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube.
All right. He is James Rapien. Nobody does a better job covering the beat. And I can say that as his friend and colleague. covering the Cincinnati Bengals. That is this episode of the Jungle Roar podcast. Bengals head into their mini camp, of course, next week, and the Jungle Roar pod and CLNS Cincy will have you covered from Paycor. So be sure to check out all of the great content there as well. Want to thank our great sponsors, Game Time, and of course, Prize Picks, and all of the people at CLNS Media who help get this podcast on all of our platforms and in the possession and content consuming hands of all of those great listeners and viewers out there. Until next week, keep that jungle roaring.